who joins our webinar tonight leaves here inspired to try it. If you'd like to get an overview of winter cycling skills, what to wear, how to maintain your bike, how to plan your routes, and what it's like, then stick around and we'll fill your time in for the next hour. And we also have a prize draw, and we have some great prizes to give away at the end of the draw. So please stay around for that. That will happen at the end of the evening, which includes some nifty little handlebar bags from a company called Two Wheel Cycle. We have a 4-hour fat bike rental for a local bike shop, and some front and rear lights for cycling. Oh, Julio, you can go on to the next slide. So this is a hybrid event. We're going to give it a shot. We have people that are gathering online tonight. It looks like we have about 24, 25 people gathering there, and maybe more. And we also have some people that have joined us on, in person at the library. The library was so kind to donate some space for us. So I'm just hoping that just laying out a couple things so that we get the best of both worlds and that everyone walks away with a meaningful experience. So I have, there's a screen on your for those joining us online. It's labeled A2. That is managed by a man named Bob, and he will monitor the chat along with Julio tonight to make sure that all your questions are answered, and we'll periodically stop and check and just make sure that all your questions are being answered. And then Ellen Croy, which unfortunately we just don't have a camera to show the people online, is sitting at the back, and she's our virtual host. So if you have any questions, Ellen's in the back there. We'll also try to encourage some interaction between the online and the in-person worlds later on in the webinar, and we'll be taking questions kind of in between slides as they go. If you're joining us in person and you would like to share an experience about winter biking, or if you have any questions, we will, the co-hosts that are standing up here will repeat your questions so that they will, the people online can hear them. So then we can go to the next slide, Julio. All right, so before we begin our webinar tonight, this is a beautiful picture of the Okanagan Rail Trail. This is a place that many locals in the community enjoy going to, and tourists alike. So if you're joining us from far and near and you haven't been here, this is definitely one of the big places to go, and it's just located outside of the city of Vernon. And I'm really grateful, and I know lots of others in this community are, to have these beautiful places to explore. So it is with great gratitude and in the spirit of this gathering that I recognize that the city of Vernon is located on the traditional territory of the Silks people of the Okanagan Nation. And some of you may be joining us from near and far and from other Indigenous territories this evening, and I'd like to extend this welcome to you as well, and the keepers of your lands as well. I'm an immigrant to Canada, and I'm learning about my role, how to practice truth and reconciliation, and be intentional in my actions. And wherever you are on your path to this as well, I invite you to do the same. If anyone's interested in learning more about land acknowledgements, I encourage you to visit your local band, like the Okanagan Indian Band. And there's also another great website called native-land.ca with more resources. And we can go on to the next slide. All right, so we all gathered here today because we wanted to put on a webinar tonight, because we have an in-person gathering, because we have beautiful green spaces, trails, and growing infrastructure in our city that's offering opportunities to cycle throughout all of the seasons. So Julio, you can go to the next slide. Our spring, summer, and fall are well-known seasons for cycling. And we have lots of opportunities around here for recreation, leisure, and commuting. And one of the seasons that is still up and coming is the winter. And so sometimes if it's your first time going out or you've seen people riding around in the winter, you would ask yourself, why would they do it? It's definitely because it's fun. You get lots of fresh air. You feel great. You stay very warm. And I find that it's a really lovely way to slow down and also connect with our community through various ways. You can go to the next slide. So it's my pleasure to introduce our speakers for tonight, Bruce Mole and Danielle DeFries. Bruce Mole has been a CAN bike cycling instructor for over 25 years and a bike commuter for even longer. He has a YouTube channel at Bruce Mole for cycling tips in the Vernon area. And Bruce is also an avid bike camper and has camped in the sun, the rain, and through the wind and the snow across Canada and also throughout most of southern BC. So Bruce will be leading us through the first part of our webinar, and then Danielle will take his place. And Danielle DeFries is the transportation planner for the city of Vernon and is a daily winter cyclist. She has worked in transportation since 2015 with previous roles in the city's health and active transportation research lab, Chatter, at SFU, and also at TransLink. And she will walk you through a little bit of route planning and cycling and those kinds of things. So without further ado, I will invite Bruce out.
Thank you, Anne. So I'm going to be talking about what to wear, getting your bike ready, something about tires and e-bikes, so a few things, and I'll be taking questions along the way. So what to wear? Julio, could I get the next slide, please? So we're going to go from head to toe on this. If you're just trying cycling out in the winter for the first time, wear something loose, something inexpensive, because you might put your knee through something or fall on your elbow or wreck your gloves. If you're trying it the first time, just get out in the driveway with loose stuff, and clothing doesn't really make that much of a difference, but for trying things out. But wear your helmet, make sure you're wearing gloves, and just about any shoe will do that will fit onto your pedal. But if you're going to go for a longer ride, locally our rail trail, but there's also people who commute in the winter, people who ride city streets, multi-use paths, highways. You want to get maybe a bit more serious about your equipment that you're wearing to keep out the cold, keep you warm, but not so warm that you arrive sweaty and wet, and if you have to stop for any time, you get a chill. So from head to toe, generally I wear a helmet and I wear a thin toque underneath that, and we have a nice little go by bike. These little toques are actually really great for underhand helmets. They're very thin and they work super well. I also wear ear muffs, kind of a thing, on the really cold days, because when you remember with wind chill, when you start riding, it starts getting colder. I like to cover my ears, and there's all sorts of different ways to cover your ears. You can have a long toque, you can have a headband, you can have these little muff things that go into your helmet straps, and they all work really, really well. Then I wear glasses. So I have my riding glasses, which I use the ski anti-fog stuff in, so that when I'm riding, it doesn't fog up. It's usually actually if you have to stop for a stoplight or at just waiting for traffic to clear, you start to fog. So having the anti-fog on the glasses works really, really well. And wraparound glasses keeps the really cold air off the eye, which is a real positive thing. I've tried the balaclavas kind of thing, and they just don't work for me. They fog up my glasses all the time, so that doesn't work for me. But if you could try it if you have one. I wear a neck buff too. I have a prestigious Go by Bike neck buff on too. You want to avoid scarves because they come loose and they can go into your wheels, and not really a good thing. So a neck buff or a high, like a turtleneck or something like that. When you're leaning forward on your bike, and you do that a bit more in the winter as you're centering yourself over your bike, you do get air kind of down your throat. So for my torso, for the main body, I wear 3 different layers, generally speaking, and I change the thickness of the layers depending on how cold it is. But I always have a thin performance layer, like a long sleeve running shirt or something like that, as a base layer, very thin as possible. And then I usually use a thin fleece over top, and then a wind jacket. And I have a number of different wind jackets. Some have fleece in them for our -10s, and then the non-fleece for our 0 degree kind of days. So number of different jackets, but mostly it's 3 layers, very thin, all thin, and ending with a windbreaker kind of a thing jacket. I can see people posting things. I wear a vest because, you know, that sunlight is kind of rare this time of year. Gloves, I brought my lobster gloves. I always have the lobster. Inside of this, I have another glove that I wear. So I wear a thin, ordinary glove and then a lobster glove over top. And I actually have another lobster glove I can wear over top of this as well that breaks the wind on the really cold days. So generally 2 layers on my hands, often sometimes 3, like a couple of weeks ago when it was -18, 17. It's like, well, yeah, maybe a 3rd layer on the hands. For my legs, I actually usually just wear a set of tights that have the windproof cover, but I have worn long johns and snow pants. And if you have snow pants for skiing, that works really well too. But I have the cycling specific wind breaking kind of tights, and they have extra padding around the knees because the knees don't get a lot of blood at the best of times, and so they get chilled really easily, and you can get knee aches too. So make sure you get your knees covered, maybe leg warmers or extra knee coverings. Down in the shoe area, I'm back up to like the hands area. I can go up to 4 layers with thin socks, boots. I have a neoprene booties for really cold days, but if it's a slushy kind of snowy day, I have a boot cover, Velcro on kind of a thing. In that image, I'm just wearing the Mountain Equipment windbreaker kind of snowshoe cover. I also use, I also clip in. So my pedals, I can't have anything in the way of those pedals. Socks, I usually wear a thin pair of socks, then a pair of Gore-Tex socks, windbreaker kind of things, and then the shoe, and then the shoe cover. So up to 4 layers on my feet. And that doesn't get crazy. It's not like crazy thick, but I have a wider shoe for winter. I think those are my tips for what to wear. Should I take questions on that, Bob?
No, just there is some riders that mention ski goggles as a good winter eyewear.
So some people have mentioned ski goggles. I have tried ski goggles, and actually my wraparound, when I have 2 layers, I get fog in between layers, even when I use the little anti-fog stuff. So I prefer to use a single, but if you don't have prescriptions or you have prescription goggles, I could see that would really work. Yeah. Any other questions on that online? Okay. Any questions here? Our studio audience is silent. Okay, I'm going to move on. Julio, could I get the next slide, please? Getting your bike ready. So you got yourself ready. Winter cycling is, it's a little harder on a bike, but it is, it's not bad if you wipe your bike off and things like that. But I'm going to go top to bottom again on this bicycle. Lights are very important. Once again, on a bicycle, they're actually a requirement by law, but they really help you see and be seen. The There's a dialog box popping up in front of my screen. No one sees that?
Yeah, maybe just ask Julio to admit. Yeah, you can just do that.
I want to be able to, I'm trying to see what I'm looking at. This bike has reflectors, and if your bike came with reflectors, leave them on. But generally speaking, reflectors that come on bikes are really dinky, and there are some really good reflectors that you can get, but generally speaking, if they fall off your bike, you don't really have to replace them. But a good light for the front and the back, and we have some prize lights, I believe. The fenders are, a lot of people in the Okanagan don't have fenders, so you can get some really good clip-on ones that just go at the back and then save your backpack or your back from getting dirty, and the little clip-on one at the front to make sure your legs don't get dirty. Snow has a lot of traction, but it also comes up into your leg area and up your back. It throws like really fine sand, so it's worth getting a set of fenders for that. Brakes and tires. I'm going to be talking about tires by itself in just a sec, but brakes, generally speaking on bikes, two different types. The rim brakes and the disc brakes. You won't find, if you have disc brakes, you won't find too much problem stopping in winter conditions. But with the rim brakes, the little rubber things that go across your rim, when the snow melts, and it will melt as your wheel warms up, everything takes longer, and those brakes don't work as fast. And in the winter, I'll be talking about in a sec, in the winter you usually just use your back brake anyways. And so that's even less stopping power. So you just got to keep in mind when you're winter riding, everything is slower. You're slow to start, you're slow to stop, and it just gets it's like a slow motion experiment in cycling. Another slide, please, Julio. Tires. Pros and cons. If you're just going to try it out, try it with your bike tires that you have. Generally speaking, if they're knobby, you can let some of the air out down to what the manufacturer supposes is the lowest amount of pressure. You just make sure all those knobs are engaged with the snow. And like I say, snow actually does have a lot of traction. It's ice that doesn't have a lot of traction. And snow on top of ice is even more miserable. So if you have some surface area on top of the snow and on top of the ice, that's really great. So thicker tires, a little lower pressure. And if you're enjoying that, you might want to consider spending a couple $100 or checking Facebook Marketplace for some used tires. But you can get really nice studded tires that work awesome on top of ice and snow. It's like a non-issue when you're using those kind of tires, but it requires a little bit of investment. Did we have someone going to talk about his experience making his own tires?
No, he was unable.
He's unable? We were, when we were preparing this webinar, we were speaking to a local person who had told us about an experience he had making his own winter tires, and he just got an old tire and got some screws and drilled them into the knobs, and then covered the heads of the screws so you wouldn't get a flat, covered the head with duct tape kind of a thing. What's going on? I'm not doing that. And then we're on tires, Julio, tires. And then, so he made his own studded tires, and they turned out to be horrible because he used too long a screw and they were going all over the place, and then the head was turning inside the casing of the tire and he was getting flats. I mean, flats are not good at the best of times, but wait till you're like halfway to work, 10 minutes into your ride, you got a flat and it's snowing and you're not on a bus route. Well, we'll talk about route selection in a little bit. So tires, yes, you can just pay attention to it, but if you are going to commit to winter cycling, maybe go to your local bike shop and check out some of the better performing tires for the area that you're living in. Okay. Any question about tires? Any questions about tires?
just comments from people saying that studded tires are amazing. They love their studded tires, so there are people.
There's a love
who are
affair, a
using
public love affair with studded tires. That's excellent to hear. They're actually very reasonably priced. Okay, Julio, we're on to e-bikes. That was, yeah, one slide. So e-bikes, not too much different from your regular bike, but the nice thing about them is they have a little bit more mass. So your bike weighs a bit more. You can actually get the center of your balance a little bit better into and over top of the snow. But what I wanted to talk about, especially with e-bikes, is batteries. So batteries don't like cold and they don't like moisture. So you're going to find in like our last week in the -18 sort of range, that your battery won't last as long. So just a little heads up, you might not get the same kind of mileage. If you're on a really long commute, maybe plug it in at work, but take your battery in. Don't plug your battery in cold weather. If you can't bring your bike in, bring your battery in to keep it warm, and charge them warm too. Don't charge them cold. They don't like moisture. Now, of course, most e-bikes are probably not made for Canadian winters. I'm not sure, but if you're going to ride a lot in the snow, and have snow build up on your frame, you might want to look into getting a neoprene cover for your e-bike battery, just to keep the moisture out. Okay. Any questions about that?
No further questions.
Okay. Julio, the next slide, please. Winter cycling skills. Okay, so you're ready to try winter cycling. I mentioned just a few moments ago that if you're going to try winter cycling, then there's a couple of things that you have to keep in mind skill-wise, and that is on top of snow and ice, a lot of jerky movements don't work well. You're just going to like squeeze the brakes and fall over kind of thing. So everything has to be done gently and without a lot of force. So starting is slower, stopping is slower. I recommend if you're just trying it for the first time that you totally ignore your front brake and just use your back brake so that your front wheel doesn't slide out and until you get used to steering in slipperier conditions, because it can be done. I mean, there's lots of people riding it this time of year. It just takes a little bit more practice. And everything takes longer, much longer in the winter. Probably at least a third longer to do your commute or off to the gym or grocery stores or stuff like that. Julio, the next slide, please. So starting, stopping, and turning. So turning, the difference between turning in the winter and then turning in the summer is you can't really lean your bike in the winter. When you lean, you go down. It just like slips right out. So you do more steering than leaning. That also means that you want to position yourself over the center of your bike more. There's no leaning back. There's no leaning, not even going forward over your bike, over the center of your bike to make sure that you're like right in the middle. So it requires a little bit of posture. A lot of people have mountain bikes for the winter cycling. Not too many people are on gravel bikes. I've noticed certainly in our town. So that posture sort of comes naturally, upright posture on mountain bikes, which works out really, really well. But when you're turning, so for turning, especially if you're doing winter commuting and you have to signal your turns, make sure you signal before you turn so that you can get your hands back onto your handlebars. So do your signals and then get your hand back on the handlebars and then do your actual turn. Turning. Can I get the next slide, Julio? So I just want to talk about, I talked about stopping, I talked about turning, I just want to talk about road conditions because they are a little different in the winter. Obviously, it's slippery. but ice is the problem. Snow isn't so much the problem, but ice hides underneath snow layers and in between leaf layers. And in the Okanagan this year, many of our leaves are just coming off the trees now and falling on the roadway. It's actually a different kind of spring or fall and spring than in previous years. So we're finding leaves on the ground still, a lot of frost in between, light skiff of snow over the last day, covering up some of the ice. So you just have to be super aware that there probably is ice unless you can see clear pavement. And then even if you can see clear pavement, at this time of year, we also get black ice. And the black ice forms quickly, mostly in the morning, mostly in moist areas. We don't have a lot of overpasses in the Vernon area, but certainly in Kamloops and Kelowna, bridges and overpasses, they get they really do get a lot of black ice, especially wooden bridges. It gets a slick little frost on them. So you really have to be cautious. If you've been riding along and found the traction good and you're about to take an overpass or a bridge, just be super cautious that there might be either some frost there or some black ice there. So just a little heads up about that. I'm going to move on to bike maintenance, unless there's a question there, Bob.
Nope.
Any questions here about riding in town? We don't have a lot of overpasses. And our bridge decks, oh yeah, our rubber bridge decks are a little slippery sometimes. If you're coming down off East Hill, you're probably doing okay. But if you're working your way uphill over the railway tracks that run parallel to 30th and 32nd, then the bridge decks can be a little slick. But certainly railway, just the rails themselves are pretty slippery too. So make sure you always hit those perpendicular. Okay, next slide, please, Julio.
We do have a question. Do most people learning to ride in the winter fall off their bikes a lot?
Do most people who learn to ride in the winter fall off their bikes a lot? I would say that you'd be an incredibly gifted cyclist if you did not fall off your bike the first couple times you tried winter cycling. Matter of fact, if you don't fall, how do you know your limits? You just wouldn't. You're just too good. Learn your limits, see where you do fall. That way, when you're out on the roadway or out on the paths, you'll learn something. Yes.
With that said, I find it really useful when you're first starting your ride, especially if you're on a hill and stuff, is test how much traction you have. Give your back brake a good pull until you feel it lock, and then you know how much grip you have, at least in that specific condition.
Yeah, so we have a comment from our live studio audience about testing to see how much grip you have at any given moment. If you've stopped, just to give your crank a little push and just see what those tires are engaging in, or if they aren't, then recenter your balance and check what you're doing. Thank you very much for that comment. Okay, we're going to move on to bike maintenance. So I'm not going to do a whole bike maintenance tutorial, but I will say that you do want to check your tires and make sure that they're inflated to the manufacturer's recommended pressure, usually on the low side for winter. And when you come back off your ride, make sure you wipe off your tires and your chain. If it's snow and it comes off easy, then just having a rag just to wipe that stuff off works really, really super well. You might want to add some lube after that. But if you have rim brakes, make sure you wipe your rim brakes and check your derailleur. Matter of fact, while you're riding, if you're in a lot of snow, maybe change gears every once in a while just to knock the snow out of your derailleur so that you will be able to change gears when you need to. And if you find your gears are frozen, you probably have water in your cable lines, and you might want to dry those out with some, like a hot garage for a bike sauna for a day or so in the garage. So check your bike, make sure that the chains aren't rusting. Salt on the road, remember, salt on the road, easy, really hard on a chain. So check for some rust. Check for oxidization on your aluminum parts as well. Lube your chain. Secure your wheels. If you have to take your wheels off for any reason, put them in the car because you maybe drive halfway to work and then ride the rest of the way or something. Always check your quick releases. Maybe give your bike a little bounce test, just like hold it off the ground about an inch and just let it drop and bounce and listen to anything that vibrates. And if you do that all the time, you always hear the same vibration, then you know your bike's okay. But if you hear a new vibration, it's time to usually check the pannier rack or check the fenders or something like that. Make sure you tighten it up. Having a mechanical on a winter day is worse than having a mechanical on a summer day. Okay, so you do have to watch for, because we have extra grit on our roads, you do want to wipe that off your chain and the whole drive system, and make sure that your fenders, they build up stuff underneath, so knock that out too, because that can fall right into your chain. So yeah, clean your bike more often really is what it comes down to. If you're not sure if your bike is okay for winter, take it to some of the local shops. They'll always be able to give you a tune-up or some advice, and good advice about tires, generally speaking, too. Do we have any bike maintenance questions there, Bob?
Just people asking about where to wash their bike. But
oh yeah, so here's the thing. You know, if you live on the coast and it's like 0 degrees, you can like hose off your bike and put it away. But here in the Okanagan, you're practically, because it's always frozen and your garage is probably always frozen too, it's down to wiping, and I use an old dish brush. Well, I use the dish brush and then my wife gets a new one and just knock the stuff off the rims. There's washing a bike is, well, for us in the Okanagan certainly is a bit more difficult when everything is frozen for months, just months, because you don't want to use your garden hose. You don't want to hook that up, or so you're walking around with warm water. I would say we do more bike maintenance with towels than anything else in our winter. Is there any other observations there? Then I am done here. And Danny DeFries is coming up.
Okay.
All right.
Hello, everyone online. Everyone in the room can already see me, and I'll try to balance between where this webcam is and where your faces are. So we've talked about how to get set up, but what about getting out and trying it? I see there are some helmets in the room, so some of you are already doing this. I biked here, Anna biked here. Not sure if Bruce biked here, but we all bike quite a bit. So just to get started for your very first time, do it in a non-committal way. Go out and have fun sometime where you don't have a commitment or a timeline to get somewhere, and you just have a chance to try it. And depending on your level of confidence as a cyclist, you could do a little lap around your neighborhood, which is what I did. But if you want to stay off roads and be somewhere where you're protected from any traffic, you can go into a park or an empty parking lot. Might be a chance also to do it during the day and make sure there's sunlight, or it's a well-lit area with lots of street lights. In general, stay warm. You don't need to go and buy any fancy new equipment for your very first time if you're just testing it out. Give it a shot and see how you feel, because different people run differently anyway. Bruce needs lots of layers and I run really warm, and I just wear a single t-shirt and a jacket because I'll get too hot. So see what works for you before you buy anything fancy. Next slide, please. So finding a regular route. Most of us go to Google to find where we're going. There is a bike option, but I would caution that this might not be the best way to figure out how you're going to do your first winter cycle trip where you actually have a destination and a timeline. This is an example in Vernon, going from City Hall to Vernon CrossFit, which is up 11th Avenue in Middleton. There's a hill there and it's putting you on Highway 6. Which is something most of us do not want to attempt, even if you're a very advanced cyclist, and in the winter it is probably even scarier. So next slide, please. So the best way to find your winter route is to go out and see what it looks like. If you are trying something that you regularly do, like going to work or going to the library, you can try driving by or even walking at first. I would suggest walking is probably better because you're going to see more of the details, where driving you're probably going too fast. And then also just a caution that there's different levels of snow and dirt and sand and salt on the road during the winter. So a bike lane that you might expect to use in the summer, you might not be able to use in the winter because it has snow in it. So this is a case here on, I think it's on Pleasant Valley Road, where today the bike lane actually looks okay. You could probably use the edge of it, but I would do what's called taking the lane and ride in the driving lane. And the cars just follow behind, and you behave like a car and follow the rules of the road. You do have to be cautious though. I find in Vernon and the Okanagan in general, not a lot of drivers are expecting cyclists out in the winter because we are just starting to show ourselves by force. So make sure that you are seen and wearing reflective equipment and things that drivers will notice you, like your lights. Next slide, please. So back to my example, I want to give you some alternative ways of finding out how and where to go if you are only looking online and can't go out on the roads yourself. You probably want to stay away from Google. They're going to give you the most advanced route, but to do this exact same trip from Vernon City Hall to CrossFit Vernon, there are actually a couple alternatives that'll put you on nice cycling infrastructure that is maintained in the winter and cleaned up by our little cat, and will carry you on through the park. So next slide, please. One of the tools that we have at the city is our Vernon Community Bike Map. We are putting in more infrastructure for cycling faster than this map is getting updated. So hopefully now that we have Anna as the active transportation coordinator, this map can get updated as the infrastructure is built. But this is a tool that you can just Google it, and it's online as a PDF. You do need to have some skills to read the map itself, but I've highlighted here in yellow the exact same route from City Hall up to Vernon CrossFit, and not all of the infrastructure is actually on this map, but you can go on the 30th Street cycle track, cut through Polson Park on the multi-use path, then go on Cal Lake Road on the multi-use path there, and the only part of road that you actually need to ride on is up 11th Avenue, where there is a bike lane, but right now the bike lane is full of snow, so you have to ride on the road itself, which is a bit advanced. It's uphill, so you might want to dismount and walk up the hill on the side of the road. Next slide, please, Julio. So this is a bit difficult to see just because it's a finer grained map, but there is another option. If our map is not up to date, I would say OpenStreetMaps is the most up to date, and it's also available Canada-wide. So if you're not in the city of Vernon itself and you're looking at other types of infrastructure, this map is going to show you pretty much everything that's there. If you just Google OpenStreetMaps, it'll pop up as the first option. This is a community-driven mapping system, so all of the infrastructure that is in there is put in by any general member of the public. It might be put in by me as an avid user of it, but this is the exact same route and is the best map of the three that I've shown here. It has all of the cycle tracks and multi-use paths available in the map so that you can find a route that will work for you and your level of confidence. So next slide, what is it really like? This is a route that I myself take quite often, and I have taken it in the winter. Right outside here on 30th Street, the cycle track is cleared. It's lovely infrastructure and easy to navigate. It's a very straight route. Once you get into Polson Park, it's a little bit trickier. My first time through Polson Park on my bike, I totally got lost. Even though I look at maps all day, I had no idea where I was. So it's okay to not know where you're going. Have your cell phone with you. We're in an urban area. You're most likely going to have cell service. You can pull up Google Maps. And Google Maps in the background will show you the ped pass. You just can't search it as a route. So I was able to figure out where I was, and you just keep heading south through the park. But then at the bottom of Polson Park, if you're from around here, you run into the boardwalk, which is a very interesting texture on your bike in the winter when it's covered in snow and ice. So that's somewhere you need to, Anna does that every day, something you need to go a little bit slower, a little bit more cautious. The turns, you might fishtail, and just take it as it comes. And then finally, the last part of that route, you come out of Polson Park, you cross the road, and there is another separated cycle track, but this one is on the road instead of raised, so you can get through there quite nicely. It's usually cleared. It might have a little bit more ice buildup. Then onto Cow Lake Road cycle track and up 11th. So the last part is riding on the road, and again, as I mentioned, I have tons of anecdotes for what it's like riding on the road and taking the lane with drivers in Vernon. They're not always expecting you, but as long as you can make yourself known, you have your reflectors, I find it's generally okay. The other thing I wanted to add is that it's okay to have a bailout plan, especially if you're not super confident as a cyclist. I'm not always confident on the road. I dismount from my bike and walk on the sidewalk sometimes when I've got some drivers that might not be the friendliest around, or the road condition is worse than I expected it to be. It's okay to park your bike somewhere, lock it up, go back for it later, have someone pick you up, leave your bike at work, and take the bus home, or put your bike on the front of the bus. The conditions do change throughout the day, and it's okay if it's not exactly what you were expecting when you started. And then the last thing I wanted to add is, and I'll leave it to questions and other discussion after, I'm happy to answer anything from my experience, is that this is my very first winter cycling in Okanagan conditions. So I've been a cyclist my whole life, but I'm not necessarily a super advanced or high confidence cyclist on the road. And I've found it really fun, quite lovely, not as cold as I expected. I didn't go and buy anything too fancy, which is a total lie. I bought an e-bike, but that is also not required. The only things I invested in once I decided that it was something I wanted to do every day was a set of studded tires that are way cheaper than the ones that are on my car, and a really good neck buff, because I was getting a really cold face from the wind. So cycling glasses and a neck buff, which I don't like a toque because my head gets too hot, so I pull it up over my ears and just under my nose and look probably a little bit crazy, but that's what works for me so I don't get fogged up. I am going to leave it there, and I believe Anna might have some other people who have experiences to share what it's really like. Thank you.
Thank you. It was lovely, Danielle. Thank you, Bruce. If there's any experiences that you want to share about winter cycling, feel free to pop them in the chat, and we'll check in with Bob. And while we're waiting for that, I took my 12-year-old niece out for her first winter ride about 3 weeks ago, and it was a beautiful sunny day in January, and we had been outside all day, and it was about 2:30, and the sun was up, and the roads were clear, and I said to her, "Do you want to bike down to the beach?" And she said, "I've never ridden a bike in the winter." So I got her a little helmet, and she took my mom's beach cruiser out because it was a beautiful day. And I live on top of quite a steep hill, and so she was teetering on her little bike like this. And I said, "Just trust yourself, you can get down the hill." And so when she got down the hill and we crossed the highway, we got onto a multi-use pathway, and I decided not to cycle behind her because I thought I might intimidate her. And we got to Cow Lake store, which was about a 3-minute ride, and she had such a big smile on her face, and she said, "That was the funnest thing I have ever done." And I went into the store, I got a tea, and she got a hot chocolate, and she said, "Hold my hot chocolate." And she spent the rest of the 15 minutes that we were outside on Cal Beach trying to figure out how to ride her bike in the sand and the snow, and it was just so wonderful. And so whatever your winter cycling experience looks like, I just find that there is a lot of joy in it. Was there anything online? Is there anything in the room that anyone would like to share?
We have a couple of comments online.
Okay.
So Laurel, who's in Vernon, she comments that if you're looking for a great book on winter biking, Frostbite by Tom Babine is a great read. He's a Canadian author. And there's an ongoing continuous comments about single best investment with studded tires. In snow, regular tires are great. If it's icy, it's more challenging. Studded tires are a wise choice.
Awesome.
Yeah, I guess these questions are sort of like, can we really get up East Hill with studded tires? And I think
Yeah. So this was also my first winter committing to cycling, and I live on top of quite a steep hill, and I haven't had a single day that I haven't felt that I was sticking nicely to the ground with my studded tires. So I found that they were really kind of worth my while, and I haven't had any moments. Actually, the only time that I had a little fall this winter was on a bike without studded tires, and so it convinced me that yes, I did want studded tires under my bike, and even that wasn't so bad. I think there was some comments. Would I ride a hill without studs? I think it would depend on the day. You know, I have found that January was quite mild, and lots of the days we just had pavement on the road this year, and it was just dry, and it was very similar to shoulder season cycling. And so I think it just depends on the temperature and what the road conditions are like. And I don't know, I think our winter's kind of been off and on all winter. So the craziest day that I think I cycled was -21, that cold snap in December, and a lot of snow had fallen, and I was so surprised how crisp and quiet it was that day on my bike. It was really quite a beautiful experience. And I come into Polson Park every day, and I even had a day where I had the whole boardwalk to myself, and this eagle flew by, and it just it was me and the eagle, and I was on the bike, and it was so close to me, I could see its feathers moving as it was braking. And yeah, it was. Bruce, there was a comment in the audience that it sounds like a Disney movie, but it was, yeah, I've had quite some wonderful experiences in the quiet of the winter on my bike this year. Is there anything else? Is there any experiences in the audience here that you guys would like to share? If not, then we will pass the presentation over to Julio. He just has a few comments about Go by Bike. I'm just conscious about time. It is 7:53, and the webinar was supposed to end at 8. So Julio, you can take it away.
No worries. Thank you so much. Can everybody hear me? Is the audio okay in the room?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You sound
Okay.
great. You sound like
Thank you so much. And my name is Julio. I am the program coordinator for Go Bike Bike BC. So who is Go Bike Bike BC? I'll start with our mission. Our mission is to inspire everyone to go by bike. And our vision is a future where everyone has the opportunity to experience the joy of cycling for work, for play, for well-being, and for the planet. Now, Go by Bike actually started here in Victoria. I am based out of Victoria, although I lived in Winnipeg and Montreal. So I've seen and done a fair share of winter riding over there. So Go by Bike BC Society, formerly known as Bike to Work BC Society, was actually initially formed as a provincial body to secure and share resources to help communities throughout British Columbia to deliver successful bike to work week events. Our mission is to inspire everyone to go by bike. So as I mentioned, Bike to Work Week actually started here in Greater Victoria in 1995. It's a core group of commuter cyclists who were committed to raising the profile of commuter cycling. The first event back then had approximately 500 participants. And fast forward to 2022, last year, Go by Bike BC helped communities such as Vernon and other communities across the province to organize 3 BC-wide Go by Bike weeks, which is Winter Go by Bike, Spring Go by Bike, and Fall Go by Bike. So Go by Bike BC numbers, as I mentioned. I like this map because it really shows, how many communities and how far like all the territory that these events actually covered. 55,000 British Columbians participated in these Go by Bike weeks, and combined we logged 2,256,000 kilometers. We also saved 489,000 kilograms of greenhouse gases from actually entering the atmosphere, which is the equivalent to 105 gasoline-powered passenger vehicles driven for 1 year. Now, we do have upcoming events. We have Winter Go by Bike, which takes place February 6th to February 12th. We have the next event after that, which is Spring Go by Bike, which is May 29th to June 5th. And then our last event is Fall Go by Bike, October 16th to 29th. I'll leave the dates here. February 6th to the 12th, so that'll be next week. Spring Go by Bike, May 29th to June 5th, and Fall Go by Bike, the 16th to the 29th. Now, how do you sign up to be part of these events? You can go on our website, which is gobybikebc.ca, or if you have your smartphone right now, you can actually just go ahead and scan the QR code. I'll leave this up for a little bit so you can actually scan the code. If you have any issues, let me know. I sent an email, but I can also gather your email. And we do, sorry, I'll just go to the next one. Nope, I went too far. We do encourage everyone to sign up and try cycling this winter. As I mentioned, February 6th to the 12th, you only need to log one bike ride to qualify for the prize draw. And we have a lot of prizes, such as neck warmers, gift cards, and so on. It only takes one bike ride. It only takes to log one bike ride to qualify for the prize draw. And it's also International Winter Bike to Work Day on Friday, February 10th. If you work outside of your house and it's feasible, we encourage you to try biking to work, logging your bike ride on our website, gobybikebc.ca. And even if it's outside of these specific weeks, we do encourage you to log all of your bike rides on our website. All this data that is collected is actually reported to the province of BC and other levels of government, and it shows how important cycling infrastructure is and flags areas where improvements are needed. On that note, on the note of prices, I will post a link here on the chat. And for those who are actually in person at the library, I've asked if you're comfortable, if you can provide your email, I will send you this form. This is so you can actually get a free seat cover from Go by Bike BC. I'll just post the form. All you need to do is actually fill out the form, and we'll mail you a free seat cover. There you go. And I'll go to my last slide, which is we do want to thank you, our sponsors, and also our partners. Go by Bike Week is funded by the province of BC. We also have ICBC, BC Hydro, BC Transit, Exodus Travels. We partner with community organizations across BC, such as Vernon, to help deliver successful encouragement programs in their communities. And together we will continue to inspire and encourage people to use their bikes as their preferred method of transportation. I do want to thank Anne for putting this together. This actually, if I'm not mistaken, the first hybrid type of event that we've had. I think it's, well, in my opinion, I think it's really successful. So thank you so much to the City of Vernon and Anne for putting this together. And I believe that Anne is going to move on to some prices, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so Julio, if you could pull up that we can exit out of this prize draw. And we're going to try this thing called a name wheel. So whenever you're ready, you can switch the screen and we'll do that. But we're pretty excited to give away our prizes this year. The City of Vernon recently bought a bunch of stuff. We worked with some local community organizations, but we have 2 of these handlebar bags, which are quite wonderful if you're a winter cyclist. And this one is a waterproof one. And it also comes with this like wonderful little bag, so it turns into a bag you can carry once it's not on your bike. So I'm excited to give 2 of those away tonight. We also have 2 sets of lights here. And if you end up winning a prize, please stay on the line if you are online. Or if you're in the audience, you can come claim your prize afterwards. And we also have a gift card to Sun Country Cycle for the value of 2 4-hour bike rides, or for 4-hour rentals for fat bikes. But if you are from out of town, I'm sure you can redeem that prize online. So anytime, Julio, you can spin the wheel.
Yeah. So can you see my screen?
Yeah, I can see your screen.
Okay. Perfect. So I'll go ahead and spin the wheel right now. And you tell me when to stop.
It will just automatically stop.
It stops automatically.
Yeah. Oh, Dave Jenkins, you are a winner. Dave, I know that you live in town, so if you stay on the line afterwards. Oh, you're in town. Oh, there you are. Awesome. You can come. So the first prize was for this handlebar bag, and then we'll do another draw for the next handlebar bag. I have it. That's perfect. Ciro Valdez. Yay, that's awesome. So the next winner was also an in-person winner, and so they can claim their bag after. Yeah, sure. There we go. And then we have a set of mech lights, front and rear lights, and so we'll give that one away. Carter. Oh, wow. Carter also won, and he's also in person. So you can give those ones out. And we have another draw for another set of lights. Alejandro. Alejandro is also in person today, and so he wins a set of lights. And then the final spin is for the 4-hour fat bike rental. Lucky crowd. Yes. Yeah, lucky crowd in person tonight. John. Is John online or is John in? John must be online.
John is online, yeah.
Okay, great. John, if you can stay online afterwards, we'll take, or actually the other thing you could do is send Julio or myself, we'll leave our email addresses in your name, an address where we can send your prize to. And then, yeah, we are at 8:04, so I think that brings us to the end of our webinar. I'd just like to thank the Okanagan Regional Library as well for providing their space, and Julio for all your help with setting this up, and everyone that's joined us in person and online today, and our wonderful speakers, Bruce and Danielle, and our hosts, Bob and Ellen, for making this first hybrid event quite smooth. So thank you all so much. Yeah, and I see as people are leaving the chat, they're saying thank you, and that was very inspiring. And I hope that you all feel ready to take a trip on your own. Yeah, they're just signing out there.
Announcement, Ellen?
Yes. So just like Julio said, that those people in person, if you can stop by with your email
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
So the seat cover that we're giving away is just a little slip cover that you put over your bike when you parked it. So it's like the plastic bag trick.
Stays
Except for
dry.
It's a nice little thing.
There's a little waterproof kind of thing there.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah, it's nice. Can't lock it.
Where is
You
it?
can, it looks so
Julio?
good.
I see that there's still some people online afterwards. Is there some questions or anything that they would like answered?
John says, I have no idea how this works.
Oh, John, yeah, if you send an email to Julio, I'll get in touch with you and I can quickly mail you your gift card. I'll do it first thing tomorrow morning. John, if you're still on the line, I can see you there. The gift card is the value on the gift card is for 2 e-bike rentals, but if you're from out of town, they also have an online store where you can spend your money at, and I'm sure that they'll ship it to you. Yeah.
Thank you so much again.
Yeah.
I will stop recording and